Shabbat shalom, glory and honor to the Father, Yahweh, and to the Son, Messiah, YHWH, who have arranged for our salvation and eternal existence in spite of the introduction of the curse of sin. Glory and honor to their names and power to their kingdom, which is soon to arrive. Blessings and greetings to the 12 tribes of Israel according to the Bible, that are scattered into the four corners of the earth through slavery and are now awakening to who they are, and to the 144,000 among them who's bringing the message of the awakening and who are the forerunners of the return of Messiah and the establishment of the kingdom of the Father Yahweh and of Messiah. Greetings. Greetings to the Gentiles who have come to the truth of the Hebrew Messiah, have come to the truth of the true people of Israel, have come to the truth of the faith of Messiah, which is Father's perfect righteousness. Greetings. Greetings to the chat. Listen to your body, the Daniels, Brother Diamond Holdings, Sister Isha Shama as Josephine and her husband, April Bach, Brother Walter, Brother Gary Joseph, Black Above Realty, Manny SD, Superstar, Castle King Rule, Stephen Kelly, Brother Don Hines. Greetings to all of you. My apologies for being late today. It was a busy week. I usually try to see my dad twice during the course of a week, but my job conspired to keep me away from him. And so I wanted to get there this morning to make sure I saw him, and ran a little late. So I apologize for that. We have been studying Deuteronomy, and yesterday we talked about how Yahweh is revealing who the last day Hebrews are, or should I say, revealing who the Hebrews are in the last days. That's more appropriate. He is revealing who the Hebrews are in the last days because, brethren, let's take a look at some things in the book of Revelation under the trumpets. Now, I wanted to bring this up. Actually, Brother Imana Prakash reminded me of this week with a question that he asked about where we are in the book of Revelation. And one thing I want to bring out that's in the Bible studies that we've done for the book of Revelation is that the seven trumpets, the seven seals, and the seven churches run together. Okay, they're all covering the same periods of time from 1 to 7, 7 being completion, the finishing. Okay, so they run through together, and they begin in the 1st century AD with the Messiah. So they begin with the Messiah and his work, and the work that he left to his apostles, the early reign, and they end in the return of Messiah and the establishment of the kingdom of Messiah, and with the latter reign. Okay, yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Azariah. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, glad to hear that. So praise the Most High. So glad that's good news. Actually, I'm glad y'all were talking. So so the trumpets are also in line with the rest of the sevens, the seven churches, the seven seals. But the trumpets are given for a warning. So let's talk about just real quickly. And again, you could go through this, studying your Bible with your father, and you can study the Revelation series that we did. We did one last year in 2022. You can look that up on the web, on the YouTube site, Raw Hebrew Remnant, and you can find it there. But churches, seals, and trumpets. Okay, churches are assemblies, right? So let's talk about that real quick. We're gonna go through this in a minute, but I just want to give you a backdrop as we're continuing in talking about how Yahweh is revealing the Hebrews for the last days. Okay, or should I say, revealing the Hebrews in the last days? So, in the churches, we know that we've been brainwashed to believe that a church is generally a Christian organization. Isn't that right? It's generally a sect of Christian beliefs, a Christian organization that usually assembles in a building. Generally speaking, the building will have a steeple and it would have a cross on it. That's what we've been brainwashed to believe a church is. It's an assembly of people inside of a Christian denominated building that, right, it's a group of people that under a religion called Christianity, right? And they have generally a Eurocentric Jesus. Can I say that? It's a Eurocentric Jesus as their centerpiece. And they are saying that, and they also follow this, like, quote unquote white Jesus, and they also ascribe to a religion. They claim that this white Jesus is the creator of their religion, Christianity. Does that sound about right? I mean, even Christians could, admit this. So they claim that. Oh, is that right? Gender fluid. Interesting. So that's like the Statue of Liberty, isn't it, Akawambanya? Gender fluid. Okay. So, yes. So really, that's what we have been brainwashed to believe a church is. So that when you see a certain building and it has crosses on it, and it will tell you meeting on Sabbaths or Sundays, whichever, and they call it a church, you're going to think that's a church. But when you study the Bible, the word church comes from the word ecclesia, meaning assembly. And the ecclesia that's been described in the Bible is the nation of Israel. It's described as the assembly. Sometimes it's called the great congregation, David calls it. Sometimes he describes it in the great congregation. Sometimes it's described as the church. It's described as the saints. But what it is a nation of people that come from Jacob, from Jacob's 12 sons, and are originated from the loins of Abraham, or Abraham who became Abraham. Abraham who became Abraham because the Heavenly Father named him Abraham, who had a son that the Heavenly Father sent the angel to tell Abraham, you're going to call him YHWH or Isaac, who had a son that he had named Jacob, who the Heavenly Father sent Messiah to say, no, your name is not Jacob, it's Israel, and all of your sons are the children of Israel. And so we have a lineage that was named by the Heavenly Father. None of these individuals changed their name legally to anything at their own whim. No, Abraham was named by his father, Terah, and his father named him Abraham, but the Most High said, your name is no longer Abraham. I am naming you Abraham, because you're going to be the father of many nations. And then Abraham had a son, and he thought it was going to be the son from the Egyptian woman. And the father said, no, I'm going to give you a son from your wife, Sarah. And her name is not going to be Sarah anymore. It's going to be Sarah. And your name is Abraham. And we're going to make this son. It's going to come in about a year. And his name is going to be Isaac, because you laughed when I told you. So then Isaac married a woman named Rebecca, and Rebecca and him had twins. They called one Esau because he was hairy and red, and they called the other one Jacob because he held onto Esau's foot to get out the womb. But Father sent Messiah to say, no, tell him his new name, Israel. Yashar means right with the Most High. Yashar, right with the Most High. Tell him that's his name. So now we really have a system of people, a lineage that was named by the Father himself. No other people can say that. We have a lineage of people. Everybody else of every religion named their own religion. Some man got together and said, this is the name of our religion. Some people got together and said, we're going to name us Baptists, or we're going to name us Methodists. We're going to name us, because we're universal, we're going to say we're the Catholic Church. But the Father didn't name any of them. The Father named Israel. That is his church. That is his assembly. So what we have in Revelations is 7 assemblies of people, 7 assemblies of time periods of the assembly of Yah's chosen ones, from the beginning all the way to the end. Okay, that's the 7 assemblies. Now, along with the 7 assemblies, you have a remnant of those assemblies, and the remnant of those assemblies are put names are put into a book that the Father knows. The Father already knows from before the foundation of the earth who was going to make up his assembly. Before you and I were ever born, the Father already knew who's going to be his assemblies, but he's the only one that knows. So then he gave to Messiah the ability to be not only Messiah, but high priest of the assembly. And he gave the kingdom of those people who Father already knew are going to be his kingdom. He gave that to Messiah, and it's called the Book of Life. And it was sealed with 7 seals, so that you have the seal of each church, each assembly has that group of persons that's going to make up the whole assembly. Okay, y'all with me so far? And then in the Bible, trumpets represent a sound of warning. You're getting ready to do something. Either an enemy is coming or there's an event getting ready to take place, but it's a warning in advance of that, in advance of an event, in advance of something happening, in advance, a sign of something getting ready to happen. They did the trumpets for the assembly to gather together. They did the trumpets for the assembly to be prepared against enemies coming to the gate. They did the trumpet in preparation for the Day of Atonement. So you had the trumpet sound as a warning sound. So with each era of the assembly, there's a warning, an enemy approaching the gate, and the return of the Messiah, a warning sound. So you had the 7 churches representing 7 assemblies. You had the 7 seals representing the remnant of the 7 assemblies. And you had the 7 trumpets representing the warning sound of each assembly. Now, the Bible tells us that YAH is light, and in him is no darkness at all. And Messiah, being his representative, say he is the way, the truth, and the life, and he is the light of the world. So that Father sent Messiah with the Father's own light to be light to all who would receive truth and light. Light represents truth and righteousness. Father is light, and in him is no darkness. So that being the case, whenever Father's word is put away, whenever darkness takes over the earth, the Bible illustrates this as not having light. Does that make sense, y'all? Not having light. So as we look at the 7 trumpets, in the beginning of the trumpets, let's take a look and just look at this in terms of a warning, and look at where you see darkness, and you'll understand what's going on. So we look at the 7 trumpets, and I'm going to begin at just to get to the point, I'm going to begin at verse 6. I'm going to begin at verse 6, and I'm going to go from verse 6 down to verse 12. Okay, from verse 6 to verse 12. Okay, this is Revelation chapter 8, from verse 6 to verse 12. Revelation chapter 8, from verse 6 to verse 12. Okay, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the tree was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died because of the waters, because they were made bitter. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so that the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for the third part of it, and the night likewise. So you see there in the fourth, there was darkness. First, there was hail and fire. Remember that? It said hail mingled with blood. That was the Father's voice. Okay, you see that, I believe, in Psalm 68, but it tells you the Father. In fact, let's take a look at it just real quick. We're not going to be studying this today, but I got a point to make here. But let's take a look at the Psalms. Is it 68 I want? No, not that 68. But let's see here. Oh, goodness. All right. Wait, I'll find it. Hold on. Give me 1 second, Kevin. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. Hold on 1 second. Always, brethren, let me tell you, always search the scriptures. I believe I'm looking for Psalms 18. Psalms 18 is what I'm looking for. Yes, Psalms 18. Notice Psalms 18. Psalms 18. Could go a couple places here, but let's go with Psalms 18, comparing that scripture with Psalms 18. I'm going to begin at verse 7. Psalms 18 from verse 7 down to verse 14. Psalms 18 from verse 7 down to verse 8, down to verse 14. We'll come right back to Revelation. Psalms 18, from 7 to 14. Psalms 18 from verse 7 to verse 14. Notice what it says. And then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken because he was wroth. So the Most High was angry. And there went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed. Hailstones and coals of fire. Yahweh also thundered in the heaven, and the highest gave his voice. Hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. So the hailstones and coals of fire representing his voice when he's angry and he's saying something. So here in Revelation, the first one, it says hailstones and coals of fire. That represented the initial outreach of the gospel, the true gospel, by the Hebrews, the first century after Messiah came, hailstones and coals of fire. He was sending out warning. But why was it hailstones and coals of fire? Because he was angry at the heathen and at the unbelieving Hebrews that were rejecting this message. That was a warning. Hailstones and coals of fire. You're getting a warning of his voice. Does that make sense, y'all? Y'all got that? Now, the second one sounded, the Bible says it was a great mountain burning as the fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Okay, so the Bible tells us in Jeremiah chapter 50, Jeremiah chapter 50, I believe it is. No, it's Jeremiah 51. Jeremiah 51, beginning at verse 24 and 25. Jeremiah 51, verse 24 and 25. And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith Yahweh. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Yahweh, which destroys all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. Okay, a burnt mountain. So now when you go back to Revelation and you look at the second angel, a mountain burning with fire and cast into the sea, what happened? Well, that was the destruction. What destruction happened? Was it Babylon? No, not Babylon. It was to Jerusalem. It was to, remember what Messiah said? Wrath is going to be on this people. Didn't he say that? He said, get out of Jerusalem. He said, get out of Judea, because these are days of vengeance and there's going to be wrath on this people. There's the warning, a trumpet warning. There's going to be wrath on the Israelites. Okay? The unbelieving Israelites. But then all of us eventually, correct? So that was the second one. Then the third part, it says, the third angel sounded, and there was wormwood. Now, when we get to Deuteronomy 29, I'm going to save that one. When we get to Deuteronomy 29, you're going to see wormwood. But wormwood is basically falsehood. It's falsehood. It's bitter. It kills people. It spiritually kills people, doesn't it? Does not lies kill people? Well, that's what it says for falsehood. A star fell from heaven, and a burning, as it were, a lamp, and part of the waters and fountains of waters. The name of the star is called wormwood. Who's the star that fell from heaven? And what is the wormwood? So now you had the Father's warning voice of the true gospel. It's not the gospel Christians talk about, obviously, because again, we've been brainwashed thinking what that gospel is, and of course what the church is. But no, when you understand what the true gospel is, the Father's perfect righteousness and the establishment of his kingdom, when you understand that, and that is what's coming, and we're supposed to be getting prepared for that, when you understand that, then you know what that was about, right? So now the wormwood is trying to replace the truth with a lie. Okay. Lucifer, yes, the devil. Then, of course, the fourth part, and there was darkness. So now what happens whenever the Hebrews are not giving what they're supposed to do, when the Hebrews are not bringing, as it was ordained for them to do, the truth of the true gospel, the truth of the Hebrew Messiah, guess what? The world is in darkness. Why? Because it was ordained of Father YAH. And it will happen that his bloodline people will bring light to the world. Just as Messiah, a bloodline Hebrew, was ordained to be the light of the world. So without that, when you are starting now from the fourth trumpet, you're starting now to change Messiah's appearance. You're starting to change the message. You're starting to change who the Hebrews are. As a matter of fact, this is the beginning of Yafet dwelling in the tents of Shem. When you start to see that, what happens? Darkness. How did that darkness manifest itself? In the brainwashing that we're talking about right now, Christianity. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense? So that's when you see darkness, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about now, why did I bring all that up? Because we started to lose our identity. Our fathers started to lose their identity as to who they were. They started to take on this new religion that came out of Constantine's empire. And they started to take on this religion and they called it Christianity. Now let's talk about this now. Christianity, I'm not saying anything that even a Christian wouldn't believe if I said this. Is not Christianity an established religion? Do I say that? Am I making that up? Or is that the truth? Is Christianity an established religion? Is that correct? I don't think I'm making that up. I think that's the truth, right? Okay. All right. Now, here's where they might disagree with me. But when you read the Bible, do you read about Messiah starting a new established religion? Did the Messiah come to establish a new religion? Is that what he did? To put a name to it and to establish this new entity religion called Christianity? Did he do that? Was that his mission when he came? No, it was not. See, what most people don't understand because they don't read. I was reading one of my favorite letters from Paul. Paul has some powerful stuff when you actually know the truth. Ephesians, man. I'm in Ephesians now. Brethren, I would normally finish Ephesians in an hour, like read through that book, but I can't because I keep going back. And this is like 100th time I read it. But one of the things Ephesians brings out is not that the Messiah came to establish a new religion, but that the Gentiles would be brought into fellowship through Messiah with the chosen saints, the Hebrews. Let's show you that. Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. Notice what it says. And this is powerful, man. When you actually read it and understand the truth, man, it's powerful. Okay, I'm just telling you. Notice, I'm going to start at verse 11. I mean, I can read all of Ephesians. It's powerful. We did study on Ephesians. It is so powerful when you understand the truth of who you are. It really is. Okay, so Ephesians chapter 2, beginning at verse 11 and go down to verse 22. We'll come right back to Revelation. Ephesians chapter 2 from verse 11 to verse 22. Remember, wherefore, he says, Paul is writing to the Ephesian Gentiles. Wherefore remember that ye, that is you Gentiles, in being in time past Gentiles, in case you didn't know who he was writing to, ye being time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision, but that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hand. So you used to be called Gentile because you were uncircumcised, and you were called that by the Hebrews who are circumcised. So there's two names for Hebrews in the Bible. There's Hebrew, Israelites, more than two. But in the New Testament, they also say circumcision. That means Hebrew. And Gentiles are called heathen, Gentiles, Greeks, and also uncircumcision. Okay, so here he said, you used to be Gentiles called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision in the flesh made by hand. That at that time, that's when you were uncircumcised Gentiles. At that time, you were without Messiah. Why? Because you were Gentile. You're not bloodline. You were without Messiah, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. That's right. You had nothing to do with Israel, and Israel had nothing to do with you. And strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope without Yahweh in the world. Why would he say strangers from the covenants of promise? Because it had nothing to do with Gentiles. Because the covenants were for Israel. So there was a separation. There was the Israelite and the promise of the Israelites, the covenants, the fathers, the prophecies. The adoption was for Israel. And then there was the rest of y'all. Period. That's what it was. And then came Pharisees and Sadducees that made that distinction even more. Like, don't even go into their house. You can't even talk to them. Remember what the Samaritan woman said to Messiah? How is it that you, being an Israelite, a Jew, talking to me, a woman of Samaria? We have no dealings. Why? Because the Israelites said, no, we don't talk to them. Don't talk to them. Don't have no dealings with them. Don't eat with them. Don't go in their house with them. You separate. That was man-made. Messiah came to show us the Father's will. And the apostles writing about it right here. Let's keep going. But now, there's been a change. But now, Messiah, YHWH, in Messiah, ye who sometimes were afar off are made nigh by the blood of Messiah. Think about that. So they were afar off, but they're brought near. Near to who? Near to what? Near to Father and to Israel through the blood of the Hebrew Messiah of the tribe of Judah. They are brought into fellowship. Let's keep going. For he, that is Messiah, is our peace, who hath made both one and have broken down the middle wall or partition between us. What was partitioning? There was a difference between Gentile and Hebrew, that nobody crosses over to the other side. You know, you can kind of know that if you're in the United States. Wasn't there or isn't there, but definitely was during the time of Jim Crow, a divide between white and black. Wasn't there? Wasn't there a divide so that white didn't go to black and black didn't go to white? In other words, white couldn't have drink from the same fountain, go to the same bathroom, or go to the same store. There was a divide. You had white Baptist churches and black Baptist churches, right? So there was a divide. So you can understand that. Who made that divide? Did the Most High make that divide, or did man make that divide? That's what happened here. The scribes and Pharisees made this divide. Okay, and the divide stopped them from performing that which they were created to do. That is, spread the message of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to the uncircumcised. That's what they were supposed to do. But they couldn't get any, they was in their own way. But now Messiah broke down that partition. Okay, verse 15. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity. What enmity? Not the one with Adam and Eve. No. Even the law of commandments contained in ordinances. That's important. That's not the law of commandments from the Father. That's the law of commandments from man. Don't eat with them. Don't talk to them. Don't drink with them. Don't fellowship with them. Messiah broke that down. Okay. in ordinances for to make himself of the two of twain one new man, so making peace, that he might reconcile both unto Yahweh in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. And he came and preached peace to you, which were far off, and to them that were nigh. Remember, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile. For through him, that is through Messiah, we both have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Through Messiah, both the Jew and the Gentile have access to the Father. But wait, there's more. Now, therefore, ye, that is you, formerly called Gentiles, uncircumcised Gentiles. There's more. What does it say? But now, therefore, ye are no more strangers and foreigners. You're not stranger and foreigner anymore. What are you then? Fellow citizens with the saints. Fellow citizens with the saints. Who are the citizens that they fellowshipping with? Who are the saints that they come together with? Who is that? The original Hebrews of the bloodline. That's right. See, so through Messiah, the message of the gospel is you Gentiles are brought into fellowship with us. Now, how twisted is it now that the Christians think they're doing us a favor? And we're not talking about them being brought into fellowship with unbelieving Hebrews. We're talking about them being brought into fellowship with Hebrews that are awakened to who they are, who the Messiah is, and who the Father is. We're talking about Gentiles being brought into fellowship. Look. But fellow citizens with the saints of the household of Yah, and are built upon the foundation of apostles, who were all Hebrew Israelites, and prophets, who were all Hebrew Israelites, YHWH Messiah himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building, fitly framed together, groweth into a holy temple in Messiah, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of the Father Yah through the Spirit. So now, because the Gentiles are now invited to receive the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the only true God, they're invited to receive his Spirit dwelling in them, that makes them now fellow citizens with us. Now, when this message is distorted, and you know, we read the scripture already in Deuteronomy. If you add or take away from the word, you don't have the word anymore. So if you change it to this religion called Christianity, you make this religion up, you don't have the word anymore. You're now in darkness. And if you change Messiah from a Hebrew to a European looking soft, flowery white man, you don't have the truth anymore. You don't have it. You just cut yourself off from it. Because you add or take away from the word or add to the word, you don't have his word no more. His word is what it is. Don't change his word. Okay? And therefore, with this advent of Christianity, you have darkness coming on the earth. Darkness coming on the earth. And that's why the four horsemen, remember the four horsemen? There was white, there was red, there was black, and then there was gray. The black one was darkness. The gray one was death that followed darkness. That's what you have. So now, because of that, when all of these things are happening in Deuteronomy chapter 28 to the Hebrews, not only are they forgetting who they are, not only are they brainwashed, not only are they forgetting their names, their God, everything, the whole earth is in darkness. Their awakening, therefore, brings the whole earth into light. But the whole earth won't recognize it. Because as we said, the 7 churches representing the remnant of the assemblies, and the 7 seals represent the names of the remnant of the assemblies, and the trumpets representing the warning to the rest of the earth at the same time of the assemblies. Okay? There you have it. And that's why when in the trumpets, you have the 2 witnesses preaching in sackcloth. Why? Because remember, it's trumpets. There's a warning. They're preaching into darkness. Isn't that the call? Come out of her, my people. Come out of what? Come out of Babylon and its darkness. Come out of Babylon and its darkness. Come into the truth and the light. So what we're reading in Deuteronomy is part of what we know to be a series of situations for the Israelite bloodline that ended up being total darkness for a long time. Does that make sense, y'all? So we were in Deuteronomy 28, and he said all of these curses are going to follow the Israelites. So now you understand why the curses follow the Israelites and why, as part of our awakening, there is an awakening to what Christianity really is. And all of it from this book. See, again, all I say is read this book, right? And again, you all bore witness, and most of you that bore witness have read the book at least once, right? So some of y'all read the book multiple times, and you can bear witness that Messiah did not say, I'm starting this new religion. I'm starting this new order, and I'm calling this order Christianity. Never. He didn't even come close to doing that. But what Christians do is he said, Catholics say like this, upon this rock, he said, thou art Peter. And upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. They went and they got that means Peter's the beginning of this new Christianity and it's built on him. And now we have a church. We have the buildings with the steeples. We got the whole thing. We got the priests. We got the whole thing from the Gentiles. See what they did? And so they brainwashed us into understanding now that the church is a religious congregation of Christianity. That's a church. It's a Christianity-based religious assembly that people meet in, and they meet based on their sect of this religion, whether it be Baptist, Pentecostal, SDA, Mormon, and they have a building they meet in, and that's the assembly called the church. And that's not it. The church is the Israelite nation by blood. See, this way, when you understand that, you understand Father hasn't changed. When he called Abraham, he said, I'm going to bless all that bless you and curse all that curse you. And in thee, all the families there is going to be blessed. And I'm going to bless your seed after you. And he told Isaac, I'm going to bless your seed after you. And he told Jacob, I'm going to bless your seed. He was talking about their seed. Us. The seed. That's us. Okay, Deuteronomy 28. So we started talking about the curses, okay? And we got down to verse 24. Actually, we went down to verse 25. But let's start at verse 24 again, okay? And I'm going to go from verse 24 down to verse 30. Deuteronomy chapter 28, from verse 24 down to verse 30. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, from verse 24 to verse 30, 7 verses. Yahweh shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Yahweh will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, wherefore thou canst not be healed. Yahweh shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So let's go over what we got. We got a nation of melanated people. Got a nation of melanated people. And these people will end up being killed and let their bodies be eaten by birds. This people will get diseases and they can't be healed. These people will get so crazy that they'll be like their madness and blindness and astonishment. They'll be like blind people, not knowing where they're going or who they are. That's blind. Only oppressed and spoiled. And nobody comes to their aid. They would get married and somebody else would have sex with their wife. How many groups of melanated people in the earth that this fit the description of? I mean, you know, you get strung up into a tree and they cut out your private parts. They let your body just rot. Or they'll burn your body till the pieces fall off. And birds eat what's left. How many people did that? How many melanated people dealt with that? How about not knowing anything about who you are, being blind to where you're going, what the future holds, not understanding anything? Melanated people. How many melanated people would have a wedding and the husband has to share his wife with a man they call master? How many different people did this happen to? Let's continue reading. The Most High is revealing who the Hebrews are in the last days. Verse 31, from verse 31 down to verse 38. Actually, 31 and 37. Let's read the next 7 verses. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. Thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face. Thou shalt not be and shall not be restored unto thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. Thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Yahweh shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. Yahweh shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, a byword among all nations, where Yahweh shall lead thee. How many nations of melanated people does this describe? Sons and daughters given to other people. You're plowing and planting, but you don't get to eat and enjoy what you plowed and planted. You become a proverb, a byword, an astonishment to all the nations that you live in. You're going to serve gods that are represented by wood and stone. How many groups of people of melanation that look like ancient Egyptians did this happen to? Let's read the next 7 verses, from 38 to 46. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in it, for the locust shall consume. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast its fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger, watch this one, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. We're going to come back to that one. He shall lend to thee, thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy Most High, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. They shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Wait, have you noticed in America that people come from other lands, sometimes century after we were brought here, start businesses, and them businesses blow up? And they start them sometimes in our neighborhoods. We have been categorized and, kind of herded into these neighborhoods, right? Because again, we're separated. Black separated from white, from Spanish, from Asian, from whatever. We're separated. And in our neighborhoods that we're separated into, other nations come into our neighborhood and start businesses, and they prosper. They start restaurants, they start stores, they start hardware stores and liquor stores and delis and corner stores, and they prosper. They don't even speak English. And we've been brought here and we've been taught English. They don't even worship white Jesus, but they come into these places and they blow up. And even I noticed, I remember because my wife and I have lost 2 houses to foreclosure. We have lost 2 houses to foreclosure. And the second house we lost foreclosure, we were getting calls. We were getting calls from bloodline Hebrews to buy our house and to rent it out at a higher price. So, and these people were making money doing this. And they said the Lord is blessing them. But really what they were doing was joining our oppressors and exploiting us. That's why my wife and I have this thing. When we were looking for houses, we never look at it for somebody. If the realtor would have said this was a foreclosed property, we wouldn't get it. Because we know what it's like to have vultures looking for the pieces that we left behind because we losing our stuff, right? So we don't want a foreclosed house. We just have this thing like that. But mostly it was bloodline Hebrews calling us, acting like they was our friends, but really wanted to buy our house and then rent it to us for more. And I would say something like this. I would say, if we're having trouble making the payment now, what makes you think we can make a higher payment? And they would say, oh, yeah, you'll do it. Forget, because they know they'd kick us out and somebody else would come in. See, so look, he shall lend to thee, thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the tail, thou shalt be the tail. Let me ask you, have you experienced this? Have you ever seen neighborhoods like this where there's poor people struggling all around the neighborhood, and somehow there's a stranger, there's somebody that wasn't even born in the nation that you was brought to as a slave. They come in, they start a restaurant, they start a store, they start a hardware store, they start a car business, they start a liquor store, and they getting paid. You ever notice that? Well, here it is right here. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt. Now let me ask you a question then. Here's a dumb question, but bear with me. So why does this happen? Let me ask you a question. Why is it that Black people have their own so-called Black man has a neighborhood? He's in this neighborhood, and you get Chinese, Koreans, you get people from the Middle East, right? Right? Chinese, Koreans, people from the Middle East, and they come in and they start their little business. They can't hardly speak English, and they come in and it blows up. Why? Because verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. That's why. That's right. It's the curse. So the next time you see that, and somebody comes to you and says, we need to organize and start our own businesses, you can know that's going nowhere. You can know that the person talking to you like that is trying to exploit you, because the curse is what stops this. The curse. It's a very simple answer. I know people don't like to hear the answer, but that's the answer right there. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. It's right there. Deuteronomy 28:43. There it is. That's why it's happening. Now, let me ask you this. How do we overcome it? Now we know why it's happening. How do we overcome it? Do we get our own political party and form our own political group so that we have enough power within our own politics and have a block of voters that can, change everything? Can we do that? That's right. There's an answer. It's returning to Father Yah. See, that's why I say it's important that we know who we are. See, Elijah Muhammad wasn't all wrong. Knowledge of self. When he talked about being, and Malcolm X talked about being knowledge of self, that was correct. But they were wrong as to who we were. We weren't no tribe of Shabazz. We are the Israelite nation. And this ain't no allegory, no story that's made up, as they would assert. This is true. We are bloodline. We are cousins to the Messiah. That's where we come from. Why are we in this position? Because we forgot his commandments. We went away from him and we started creating our own religion. And Messiah came and destroyed that religion and destroyed all of its norms and said, this is where you're supposed to be. Come back to Father Yah and his righteousness. That's what it is. Seek ye first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness. That's the answer, brethren. It is not. And you know what else, right? You ever see a real poor neighborhood? You go to a real poor neighborhood and they're all over the place, right? You ain't got, you can go any place you want. You could go southeast DC. You could go, south side Chicago. You could go South Bronx. I don't know why they're all south. You can go South Central LA. You can go to, and I've been to South Bronx. I've been to Southeastern DC. I've been to South Central LA. And you will notice some things. First of all, you'll notice everything we just talked about. Foreigners getting businesses and getting paid. Their kids getting paid to go to Harvard, whatever. But you'll also see, tell me if you've seen this, there'll be churches on almost every corner. There'll be churches on almost every corner. Have you noticed that? There'll be churches all over the place. There's two things you can find in a poor Hebrew neighborhood: churches and liquor stores. Am I lying? You can find two things there: churches and liquor stores. I remember when we was in Connecticut, and the north end of Connecticut was the ghetto. That was the north end of Connecticut, the ghetto, okay? And so in the north end of Connecticut, you see churches and liquor stores. Now, on the west end of Connecticut, of Hartford, Connecticut, the west end of Hartford, Connecticut, there was no liquor stores. There was these really fancy wine places, real fancy, right? And hardly any churches. You might see a few synagogues. Very fancy. But on the north end of Hartford, liquor stores, projects, churches everywhere. Okay? Different scene. Different scene. No accident. Deuteronomy 28:43. You understand? And it's not, that's why I say it's not the Koreans or the Chinese. It's not their fault. They're just fulfilling prophecy. You understand that now, right? They're just fulfilling prophecy. It's not their fault. They're trying to get an opportunity. That's all. And it's not that we stupid or lazy. It's none of that. It's Deuteronomy 28:43. Plain and simple. It's not, I know it's crazy, right? It's a simple answer. But look how confused everything is. And look at these churches on every corner with the Reverend doctors reaching in your pockets, in your grandmama's pocket. We can't even wait to get to her Social Security, right? Am I lying? I remember there was this sister, man. True story. And this is typical. When I tell you this story, you have heard this before. You might have even lived it. So this sister was in the projects, was going to our SDA church from a long time, one of the first members of this particular building and organization. And she had raised her children in the church. You know what I'm talking about. Raised her children in the church. She was poor, struggling. She was a single parent. I think she had 2 or 3 kids. She was struggling. Her kids grew up. Of course, they left the organization and did in the street whatever they wanted to do. She still lived in the ghetto. She still lived in North End of Hartford. And she was now taking care of her grandkids, because the kids were struggling themselves, having their own problems. So now she had her grandkids. She figured better she have them than the state. Have you heard this story before? So she's bringing her grandkids now to the church. Then, poor sister, she got cancer. She got cancer. She had been bringing her kids. She was returning tithe to the church. A few dollars she got, she would return the tithe to the church. At that time when she developed cancer, I was visiting her. I would go visit her often. Felt bad for her, she being so faithful and everything. And do you know the pastor refused to go visit her? He didn't have time. Why? He was busy trying to build up the church building fund. Didn't have time to visit her. Sister died. I don't know what happened to her children. You heard that story before? One of the things that was the start of the spark of me leaving the SDA church was when we came to Hartford, Connecticut. When I was in Harlem, I kind of liked my church in Harlem. I liked the people there. I liked hanging out there. I would like learning from the elders. I was in my early 20s, and I liked talking to the 80-year-olds. It was rich to me. But when my wife, and she brought me to Connecticut, to Hartford, Connecticut. And we was in the ghetto in North Hartford. And I thought, man, this is tremendous. I thought, because I used to do street ministries in Harlem. We'd be on 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue in Harlem, making food and giving it to people and preaching the Bible on the corners. You ever seen one of them knucklehead people? That was me one time. I was preaching the Bible on the corners with a couple of my brothers, and we would make food in the church kitchen and bring it out there and give it to people, man. We did it on 8th Avenue and 125th Street. We would do it sometimes on 123rd Street between but then it was called Lenox Avenue. And this is before it became Malcolm X. We were doing that. So when we came to Hartford, Connecticut, and I seen some of the worst projects I had ever seen, I thought to myself, man, this is an opportunity. This is great. And so I really assumed that the brothers in that church would want to join me and go into those projects and bring the word. I would just walk in there with my Bible and talk to whoever I could talk to about whatever. Nope, they wasn't doing it. And I really wasn't getting, I was like, why is it that they're so resistant? Especially the pastor, very resistant. And then the pastor came to my house because I was beginning to get a little loud about it. You know your brother. I was beginning to let them know this was not good. That there's people across the street literally living in crap. And if we said we had the truth, we should be able to go over there and share it with them, right? And the pastor came to my house. And he said, I just want to let you know the only reason I'm in this church, the only reason the conference sent me here was to build a new church in another town. And he said, quote, the people that you want us to go see do not have the economic base to help us do that. I'll never forget those words. But and I wasn't completely surprised. But really what hurt me is when I started hearing the brothers in the congregation repeat that. Those people don't have the economic base to help us. But it was almost like they were all brainwashed. So I used to go to what they call Sabbath school in the morning because I was a teacher. And then I'd leave and go across the street. That's when I met guys like Marcus Camby. I met him there in that project. Y'all know who Marcus Camby is. I met him, and I met him and dozens of other kids at that time. Okay, learn more from them than they learned from me, and so I'll never forget that. And I was like, I started to, and the people would say to me, Pastor would say, brother, we see that you leave after Sabbath school, go across the street. What you going across the street for? And I would say, know ye not that I must be about my Father's business? That's what I would say. I must be about my Father's business. That's what I would say. And as I look back, I realized that was the right move. That was the right move. That was of the Father. But see, all of that is part of the curse. They couldn't wait to get out of that neighborhood and go build a brand new church in a nice middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. They couldn't wait to do that. They couldn't wait. And so I understood then that what I saw and what they saw was two different things. And brothers and sisters, it all comes back to this curse. It all comes back to this curse. See? It all comes back to that. Because what happens, brethren? What happens? We struggle. Hebrews struggle. And let me just make it even plainer for you. Hebrews in nations controlled and dominated by the children of Yafet, y'all gonna struggle. You might get a nice house, but you're gonna pay a lot for it. Okay? You might work hard and get to retire, but your health's gonna be bad. You're going to mostly struggle because the system that you're in is not built for you. You were cursed to come into this system. But Father tells us there's a way out of it. The way out is to go to your Father, to come back to your Father. The Hebrews are saved by faith, by the faith of Messiah. That is the Father's perfect righteousness. That's the message of the gospel, to come to the Father's righteousness. You see, we've been taught all kinds of things, but the Father's Spirit is awakening us to who we are and how we get out of here. How we get out of here. Okay? Whereas them churches with the Reverend doctors, they're trying to teach us to build what? An economic base. Because we see everybody driving with new cars and we want one. We see them living in nice houses and we want one. But when you awaken to the truth, you will know that when Deuteronomy 28 is fulfilled, and brethren, it's fulfilled. Times of the Gentiles has arrived. The fulfillment till their times is fulfilled, it's arrived. That stuff's all going to be destroyed. The whole system, the money, the gold, the silver, the clothes, the buildings, the systems, the religious systems, the business systems, the economic systems, the entertainment system. It's all going to be destroyed. And in just a few years, all of this stuff is going to be worthless. The thing is that when you are awakening to the truth, you can see that few years. That's what prophecy is about, brethren. Remember now, the revelation of the Messiah YHWH, which Yah gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. See, when you're following Father Yah, he shows you before these things happen. And we can see it right now. We can see across the land, and we can see the signs of the beginning of its downfall. We can see the signs. Brethren, when people are doing dirt, you can understand right now, they're going to be destroyed. It may appear that they get over for a little while, but there's just a few years left. And Father's revealed to us all of that. Why? Because we're his chosen people. We've been his chosen people. We're just awakening back to it as he's showing us in his word. And these curses are letting us know, brethren, just a few more years and this is over. And it's for us to now return to our Father. That's how we get back to be the head and not the tail. That's how we become above and not beneath. That's why the light will come up and darkness will be dispelled. All of that comes with us returning to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All of that comes that way. That's when the generational curse is upon all our families. And you guys know you got it just like I know. You got it. It's there. It's there, brethren. Until the light of truth comes from the Messiah and Father Yah, it's there. And we see it, our uncles, our cousins, our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers. We see it. Nobody got to tell you about what a curse looks like. All you got to do is go to a family reunion right before they start fighting. Am I right? All you got to do is show up at a family gathering right before the fight starts. Somebody get a little gin in them. I don't know about y'all. Somebody get a little gin, somebody get a little too much old English, and it's on. Anybody got to tell y'all about that? You know. Why do you know? Because you're really Hebrews. That's why. Just remember that. They don't understand it. They think it's some old beef from back in the day. Mama always favored you. You was always the one. And y'all know what it really is. You know, y'all know what it really is. Praise the Most High. That's what this is so important. This awakening is so important, that understanding the truth of the true gospel and who we really are is just beyond measure important. Part of our awakening. Praise the Most High. So that's why next time you see it, you can see it today. Just drive down the street, you'll see, oh, they come from where? And they come speak English. Name your country. Guatemala, where they come from? Mexico, where they come from? Hustling and getting paid. Getting paid. Why? Deuteronomy 28. That's why. That's why. But don't worry. Don't worry. It's just a sign for us to return to our God. Don't be jealous of them. I've learned this the hard way. I'm not telling you this came easy for me, but I learned it the hard way. I'm trying to show you all. Don't worry about them. Don't. We got a greater kingdom coming to us. And it starts with knowledge of who we are. Knowledge of self. That's how it starts. Knowledge of self and repentance toward our Father. Brethren, it's on now. Oh, yeah, it's on now. Praise the Most High. Praise the Most High. I'm going to stop right here at verse 46. We're going to continue from verse 47. Oh, we're going to read every verse. Praise the Most High. We're going to read every verse. Oh, yes. You're going to start at verse 47. I'm going to, like almost 1 o'clock. I'll probably be back at about 1:45. About 1:45. Give me some grub. I had little nuts before I came in here. I had some macadamias. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you. Give you peace. Shalom, brethren.